Hello, happy Friday. Everybody loves Friday. Some say today might even be better than yesterday. Let's see if we can do it. Another day of tokenization, everybody. Thank you again for coming out. Seriously, you all helped make this happen so we can do it again next year. But meanwhile, we've got an incredible day ahead. Franklin Templeton, DTCC, Northern Trust, JP Morgan, Broadridge, some of the biggest names in finance are here. Trillions of dollars, folks. I am so excited. I want to hear what they have to say. But man, I have a really good friend I get to introduce you to. His name is Carlos Domingo, the CEO of Securitize. Come on out. Thanks. How are you today, Carlos?
Good morning, everybody, and thanks, Herwig, for the invitation.
Thank you, Carlos, for being here. You're a pretty popular guy right now. Well, first
Always
of all,
been popular.
well, I can say, as I have said, I've known him for a very long time. I've been a fan for a very long time. First, some of you may not actually know the real you. Just give us the quick story.
Wow, there's a long story because I'm also already pretty old, as you can see. So I'm originally from Spain, from Barcelona. My background is tech. I have a PhD in computer science. I've been in tech all my career, except for the last few years, which I'm kind of in the intersection between tech and finance, I guess. And yeah, live in many different countries, in Japan many years, in Dubai before moving here to Miami, lived in the West Coast before, and here I am now.
Now, I learned about you specifically from a project called Spice VC. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how maybe that was sort of your journey into crypto and just a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So in 2016, I was working in Dubai at the telecommunications industry for many years already, and I was really bored about the industry because there's nothing really happening after all the excitement of the iPhone coming up and all the things that could happen. The telcos really didn't kind of like capitalize on that opportunity, and all the interesting things move away from a telecommunications company. So I was kind of looking at what to do next, and at that time, fintech was starting or was becoming a thing. And simultaneously in 2016, I stumbled upon blockchain with the launch of Ethereum and all the activity around ICOs, et cetera. And I started investing in some of the ICOs, and it was very interesting because as somebody from the tech industry, I have been basically investing on startups, investing in funds to get exposure to the tech industry all my career, and there was always two things that were very problematic. One is how complicated it was to get the investment done and how cumbersome, and we discover the opportunities, get access to them, et cetera. And second, once you've got there, the investments were completely liquid, and that was a big problem, right? Because not everybody has money that you can park somewhere for like 7 to 10 years. I've actually have some funds that have invested a long time ago that they've started like doing distributions now after like 7 years or 8 years, and you still haven't even recouped the principal. So I always thought that these two problems, the ICOs, to some extent, they solved that, right? Like it was very easy to invest back then. These days it's a bit more cumbersome, but back then you just connect your wallets and ETH, receive a token, and suddenly you have a token that represents some sort of economic interest in the project, and then it got listed in Binance, and then you could trade it right after, so it was liquid. So I thought, well, this is super cool. Why don't I do this with startups or funds, right? Because those are like the natural asset classes that you want to make it accessible to people, and you want to make them liquid. What I didn't know was the kind of regulatory complexity, because those things obviously are securities. Well, it turns out that a lot of the ICOs were securities as well, but that's in retrospective something that people find out later. And I had, as I mentioned, my background is tech, so I had no idea about how to do it. But if you want a bit of a naive way, I thought like, well, people trade stocks all the time, right? I remember opening my E-Trade account when electronic trading became a thing, and you could actually buy stocks from your computer screen in a very simple way and trade them. So I just felt like this technology could actually enable to do that in a simple way, and the fact that it's regulated shouldn't be a barrier of entry. So that's how we decided then to tokenize a fund, and the fund is called Spice VC, and we did it. It was very small at that time, but it was one of the first projects, tokenization projects in the industry. It was probably the first fully tokenized fund. So yeah, very exciting. That's when I met you guys here in Miami and eventually moved here. So.
And that's right around, 2017, 2018, a very different environment that we see today. But Securitize was born. The name is pretty on the nose. If you're not familiar with what they do, just go check out their website. But of course, you guys are the tokenization leader today. It was a very different landscape in 2018. Tell us what's different from then versus today.
Well, there's a lot of things that are similar, like conferences like this existed back then, and then they die, and then now they reappear, that there's conference dedicated to tokenization, or what now the crypto people call real-world assets. So 2018 was kind of like similar in that respect. The concept of tokenization was kind of born at that time, and there was a lot of excitement about, basically bringing financial services products on chain to make them more productive. I think what was different is that in 2018, none of the companies playing in the space had licenses. That was the process of like getting the licenses and going and talking to the SEC, etc. I will say the infrastructure was very immature. If I look at how we do things now with, I don't know, we use, for instance, Fireblocks, and it's like super streamlined to be able to approve transactions and issue tokens and things like that. Back then, it was very, very cumbersome. So I think infrastructure-wise, the industry has improved. And then I think that the financial services companies have also kind of matured into the space, which back then, 2018, the word token had a very negative connotation. I remember walking into some meetings, and the moment you say you do tokens, they are like, oh, this is a scam for sure, because otherwise you wouldn't be using blockchain, because that's what a lot of people did with the ICOs and everything. I think the last thing that has changed is that the people in the crypto space were really not interested about doing real stuff, right? So this concept of real-world assets, which is a terrible name, but at the same time, it actually is, it tells you a lot that the crypto people call this real, as opposed to what has happened in the last few years, which is not really real. There was like issuing imaginary internet money and trying to speculate with that. So the crypto people really had no interest about the space. They went in completely different directions, ICOs, then initial exchange offerings, then governance tokens, then NFTs and whatever. So I think it now feels like it's a confluence of things happening. Crypto people wanting to do things that are real and that are productive. Financial service institutions coming into the space. You mentioned some of the ones that are active in the space, which is, that definitely didn't happen in 2018. And then service providers like us having the necessary licenses to be able to work with those financial institutions and give them kind of peace of mind that what we do is legal and is regulated and is safe.
It's a little bit more complex, folks, than just saying the term licenses. I'm going to just make you rattle down the list of all the different licenses and divisions that Securitize has.
So the first license we got is something called a transfer agent, which, to be honest, to be transparent, when I heard the term transfer agent in 2018, I had no idea what a transfer agent was. I was actually...
Nobody did.
Well, I guess people in finance knew, right? Like, as I say, my background is tech, right? So I actually had an account with ComputerShare, and I didn't even know that I was actually using a transfer agent service. So actually, Juan Hernandez, which you remember him, he's the guy that educated me on that. He was the founder and CEO of Open Finance Network. And that's when we kind of started studying what a transfer agent is and what role it plays in traditional finance, and kind of realized that, when you securitize an asset and tokenize it, basically issue shares on a public distributed ledger, you're effectively acting as a transfer agent, and therefore, getting that license was what it was required to be able to work in a regulated way, tokenizing stuff. So we hired our first general counsel in January 2019, approached the SEC, started talking to them. Those days, the knowledge they had about the space was very, very, very limited as opposed to now. But eventually we got the registration done, and that was the first license that we got. So a digital transfer agent if you want. There's been many others in the industry after that. I think today it's safe to say we're the largest one, and this is actually public information because we have to file with the SEC, public filings of our metrics. So that was kind of like the first license. Then, okay, fine. So now we can issue securities on chain in a regulated way. Great. So now somebody has to sell them, right? And somebody needs to trade them. So there was a lot of companies in the space, again, 2018, 2019, that started getting broker-dealer licenses or alternative trading systems, which are licenses that allow you to do secondary market trading for securities. And we started working with them without having our own licenses. And by 2020, it was very clear that that was not happening. They were not taking off. They were not getting things done, etc. So at that point, we decided that we wanted to have those licenses ourselves and provide an end-to-end service. So we got a broker-dealer, we got an ATS, spent a year and a half with the SEC getting everything approved for being able to do tokenization and issue tokens that represent securities and trade them and settle on chain and all these things. And then the final one that we've got much more recently is an exchange investor advisor. So for some of the asset managers we work with, we actually act as their feeder fund manager for their funds, and that requires this other license. So those are the four we have today.
And it's not an easy feat to accomplish, because you also have to get the right language in order to trade digital securities in these types of products. Is there anything on the roadmap you can quickly share?
Well, look, so what most people don't understand is when you hear somebody say, oh, I have a broker-dealer or I have an ATS, that doesn't really mean anything unless you know what they're approved for. So these licenses are not standard that everybody can do the same thing, right? So every license has their own, quirks of exactly what you've been approved for and how you can operate the license. So every time you want to do something different, you want to, settle a trade in a different way using a different technology, or you want to, sell a new type of security, et cetera, then that requires an upgrade, if you want, of your licenses. And we've been doing that all the time. So we've been, getting, approval for 40 Act funds, and which we didn't have before. Approval for, shares of bankruptcy companies, which was a popular thing a couple of years ago with all the bankruptcies happening on crypto and things of that nature. So we are continuing constantly trying to upgrade the licenses. And one of the things that we've been looking at is this whole custody problem of the digital asset securities, which there's a license called the special purpose broker-dealer, which is supposed to solve that. So those are the things that we're looking at.
So let's get to what I'm sure everybody wants to hear about. You did something I think everybody in the industry celebrates, which is the largest asset manager in the world has ended up working with you guys in order to tokenize a fund, right? And that's monumental because everybody listens and pays attention. It validates a lot for the industry. Tell us a little bit about BUIDL, and tell us a little bit about just exactly your plans in terms of Securitize's capabilities, featuring what you're doing for BlackRock.
Well, so you probably have seen Larry Fink on TV, like a year ago in CNBC and many other forums talking about tokenization. When I first heard that, I thought, this is great, right? Because this is one of the most influential CEOs. He's not just the CEO of the largest asset manager, but he's very influential. He's on TV all the time. He writes this annual shareholder letter that everybody reads, etc. So when he started talking about that, I thought, this is great, right? Because these guys are eventually going to do something, otherwise the CEO doesn't go on TV talking about it. And this is going to validate the industry, because what you need in the industry is credibility from the big players coming into the industry and doing something else. So we've been fortunate enough to be chosen as their partner, which is something I wouldn't think about it 2 or 3 years ago that was going to happen. And very recently we've issued the first fund with them. It's a fully on-chain tokenized money market fund. Is managed by BlackRock, so we act as the transfer agent, tokenization platform, and placement agent with our broker-dealer. But the fund is a native BlackRock fund, which is an important distinction. So because there's no counterparty risk towards anybody in the industry, or us or anybody else. And it's fully on-chain, which is another great thing, right? It's issued on the public Ethereum blockchain. You have to hold tokens if you want to have units of the fund. We issue dividends on chain, for the accrued interest of the fund towards the wallets that hold the tokens. We have worked out with Circle an instant USDC redemption, so you can move your tokens that represent the units of the fund into USDC, which is tokenized cash, instantly on chain, etc. And look, in 40 days after launching, became the largest fund in the industry and the largest tokenized fund in history. So I think it's great.
You can always check the price at stm.co. I think it was, you may know the exact number of days, around 40 days to become the largest tokenized fund in the world. Was it 40 days?
It was 40 days from launch, but because we're still kind of bridging TradFi with crypto, we don't issue tokens every day. We only issue tokens the days that markets are open, because when we issue tokens that are securities, they need to basically deploy the capital into actual treasuries, which are not available 24/7. So yeah, it was 40 days. 40 natural days, probably around like 30 business days. So.
We can keep them honest. It's on the blockchain. So BUIDL is already attracting a lot of interest. Tell us again, you are, again, we're talking about the future of finance. You have basically gone and created a new system, infrastructure for asset managers to come and build on. Tell us about the future plans for BUIDL. I know you have mentioned before you're looking at, it is on Ethereum, folks, if we didn't clarify that. So BUIDL is on Ethereum. Are there plans for other blockchain support? What's going on?
Look, the same way that you have USDC in many chains, the natural thing to do will be to have BUIDL in many chains. For the time we started with the public Ethereum blockchain, I guess that's the safest place to start if you want from a longevity perspective. They've been around longer than anybody else. They are the largest chain, the most liquid one, etc. But I think there's a lot of other interesting blockchains out there that contain other use cases, other ecosystems, etc. That it will be definitely interesting to be able to deploy the tokens there. As you know, we've done projects in the past with Avalanche, with Polygon, with XDC, etc. So that's obviously something we're looking at. In terms of use cases, we're kind of looking at like 3 different things, right? The first one is pure like on-chain native treasury management for companies. We've recently submitted a proposal to the Arbitrum Foundation, a governance proposal on-chain that we have to buy tokens to participate, etc. So very, very crypto native stuff to be able to start deploying BUIDL as part of their treasury. The Arbitrum Foundation holds $6.5 billion in treasury, which is the second largest one in the crypto space, and they've started kind of diversifying a little bit of that into safer assets like a tokenized money market fund. So that's great, and some of the current BUIDL holders are basically using it for treasury management. The second one is derivative products. So there's a lot of people in the industry building things on top of treasuries, on top of money market funds, but they didn't have a good access to the underlying because they didn't have like a good interface to interact with a fund because all those funds are not on chain. So now those funds are on chain, our fund is on chain, and therefore they can build other products. And I think it's already been announced that Ondo Finance is one of the companies that is building on top of BUIDL. Mountain Protocol has announced it as well, and there's several others that you will see in the coming months. And the third one, which is very interesting as well, is in traditional finance, when you trade, you have to post collateral for margin, right? So you have a position open, and then you have to post collateral in case your position goes in the wrong way, and they need to liquidate it. You need to make sure that they have cash on the exchange to do it. That happens to me, for instance, in Robinhood when I trade options. That sometimes, depending which options strategies you do, they ask you to post cash to hold it there in case your strategy goes the wrong way. So in crypto, it's the same thing, with the main difference that crypto, because it's all on chain, it moves at very, very fast speed. So the collateral has to be on chain, has to be able to liquidate it on chain, move it on chain, etc. And this typically is done with either crypto assets like Bitcoin or ETH or stablecoins. And stablecoins are a very, very popular way of posting collateral in crypto exchanges or on private brokers. So now we have BUIDL, which is cash equivalent. It's a money market fund that contains overnight repos and short-dated 3-month treasuries. So from a cash perspective, it's almost like cash, but it has a yield. It gives you the Fed rate, which is 5.3%. So instead of posting stable coins, you can now post BUIDL as collateral, and the time the collateral is sitting on the prime broker on the exchange, you're actually earning a yield. So we have one partner, FalconX, which is one of the largest prime brokers that has already announced that they're taking BUIDL as collateral, and we're working with many of the industry participants to be able to replicate the use case across the industry.
Now, which is incredible, by the way. It is truly a feat to build out the infrastructure, these partnerships, and the continued expansion. Speaking of expansion, BlackRock doubled down, and they invested in you guys alongside Hamilton Lane, another $1 trillion+ asset manager, alongside TradeWeb, and alongside a lot of Circle from behind USDC, alongside many other incredible investors. 47 million, I believe, was the exact number that was reported. What are you going to do with all that cash? Tell us about this round.
I'm going to spend it.
Oh, I hope so.
Look, we didn't need money, to be honest with you. We've always been pretty good at raising money and keeping money and being prudent with expenses. But there was this opportunity. Obviously, BlackRock has become a very close partner, and I think we've become a very close partner of them because the amount of work we had to do as a company to be able to act as a provider for a company like BlackRock put us in a position that is very difficult for other company to come and displace us there. And I think that they probably recognize the same thing, that they're with us for the long term. And then the natural thing was for them to become a shareholder of the company and being able to support us in a different way, right? Being able to have access to, help us with the strategy overall, being in the board. So Joseph Shalom, who is the head of global partnership for BlackRock, is taking over Securitize. And then since we were getting this round from BlackRock, we wanted to do a, if you want, more strategic round, like not just pure financial investors, but other companies that we're working with, to create this ecosystem, right? So Hamilton Lane is a very close partner of us. We've been working with them for close to 3 years now. We've tokenized 3 funds. And then, when the opportunity to invest came through the BlackRock round, they participated as well. And then, TradeWeb, probably, I don't know, unless people are from traditional finance, you probably never heard of TradeWeb, but TradeWeb is a very, very large company. It's the largest fixed income trading company. They also, around 80% of the treasuries in the US are purchased through TradeWeb. They're obviously a very close partner of BlackRock as well. And they've been looking at the space for a while already. And, when there was the opportunity to come and not just invest with us, but partner, and hopefully in the next few months, you'll see some joint work with them. They also participated. And then, we had stablecoin providers, so Circle and Paxos. I've always explained this, but one of the things that tokenization brings is the ability to have on the same ledger the securities and the cash alongside, right? So if you think of what a stablecoin is, it's tokenized cash, and if you think about what we do, we tokenize securities, right? And then in traditional finance, those two things are sitting two different ledgers, and they have to coordinate to move, right? Like if you sell me shares, I need to send you cash, and those are two ledgers that need to be synchronized, and this is why there is settlement times that are long, there's counterparty risk, et cetera, and blockchain eliminates this thing, right, by having the two instruments in the same place. So the stablecoin providers for us, and by the way, going back to what didn't exist in 2018, stablecoins did not exist in 2018, at least not at scale like now. So both Circle and Paxos are leaders in stablecoin issuance. Circle with USDC, Paxos is behind, as you know, the PayPal stablecoin and some other projects. So they also came along in the round.
Yeah, obviously BUIDL is now the biggest product already. We're seeing this trend of what we call liquidity funds, liquidity products, building the foundation of the future of finance in order to be able to settle into instantly, in order to take advantage of blockchain natively. We need these products to build. So obviously that's fantastic. Is that going to be the focus for the next couple of quarters? What else is sort of that you can say you believe is going to help move the market forward, and maybe that you're able to say you're working on?
Obviously, we literally just launched, right? Like, so there is a long way to go to get this to be really a meaningful size asset. I know it's the largest one, but it's like around 400 million now. So there's a lot of room to grow these, and within the 3 use cases that I mentioned, treasury management, derivative products, and collateral management, there is still a lot of things that we could do. So we've just literally scratched the surface. There's a fire coming.
You're too hot right now, Carlos. I think, are we probably okay to keep going? Gonna maybe wait it out.
Yeah, in my building happens all the time. We never leave.
So,
Kyle is gonna pull the fire.
Kyle will fix the situation. Apologies for that, folks. I think we
we
can bear through.
Okay, no, I don't know if we're gonna.
I hope there actually isn't an actual fire, though, so.
All right. So yeah. So in terms of plans, obviously we need to continue executing on this. This is literally launched very recently. So there's a lot of work that is happening to get this to be much bigger. All right, I don't know if we're going to be
You
able
got
to
a moment
continue
right
on
now,
this,
go.
but the other thing we're looking at is like, so Beetle is native on chain, is in the public Ethereum blockchain, it has USDC instant redemptions, etc. But there is a whole lot of other stuff happening in crypto, in DeFi in terms of lending and automated market making, etc. That is kind of like the natural next step for this type of products to start interacting with. Of course, there is one degree of challenge of these products. These protocols are all permissionless, anonymous. What we do are securities, which are permission and have to have a holder that you know who they are off chain, etc. But I think there's ways to kind of bridge those, kind of do the next gap that we can bridge, the same way that we bridge TradFi with crypto, real world assets with DeFi, and that's a very interesting area that we're now very closely looking at how we can do something there.
It's amazing. Now, on top of building a lot of infrastructure and a lot of great US clients, you guys actually have been in Japan for quite a while. You guys recently announced a product in Spain. You guys are clearly expanding globally. Tell us more about your plans and philosophy around that and sort of what's going on abroad.
So I don't know. I've always thought of our company as a global company. I'm based in the US, but I'm European. I live in Japan many years. That's why we have this connection there, and I have raised money from a lot of the top Japanese institutions. And
I see still people running around out there checking.
yeah,
So
nobody seems to be leaving though. But so Japan is most people don't know here in the US what we do there, but we've actually been operating there for a few years now, 4 years. We've actually been very successful in terms of if you're in Japan, everybody knows Securitize. We've done the biggest projects in the country with the biggest names there, whether it's Mizuho or Entity Data or Marui or many of the top companies there. And then in Europe, there's been crypto regulation coming into space recently. There's kind of 3 things happening. One is called MiCA, which is for digital assets. Then there's a stablecoin payment stablecoin bill coming up there. And then there's something else called the EU DLT pilot regime, which is basically regulation for tokenization, basically. How can you represent securities on chain, how you track them there, how you trade them, etc. So we've been applying to that license for a year now. Nobody has got it yet, so it's this kind of things that is a bit frustrating, that it takes very, very long time. But we hopefully think that we're going to get it and be able to kind of like replicate from a licensing perspective what we have in the US, but in Europe, which will give us additional flexibility, right? We do operate with European customers from the US, but it's limiting, right? So you can't do solicitation. You have to be very careful about, who you deal with, etc., because you don't have a local license. So hopefully being able to have licenses in Europe will allow us to do more things, not just sell to more investors, but also originate products from there, etc.
I, for one, am a big fan of these sandbox models that I wish actually the US would embrace, because it does allow companies to essentially act and operate with this new technology under and in cooperation with the regulators to make this technology work. Because again, globally, even regulators are paying attention to this. They recognize that, I even believe one day they will embrace this technology for its benefits and transparency and everything that's going on. We have 2 minutes left, Carlos. Anything you want to mention that you like to take, before we kind of move on here? Although we can take a couple extra.
I don't know. maybe it's just then me speaking again. If anybody has any question from the audience.
We do a quick question from the audience.
There's somebody there.
Yeah, right over to you.
I can speak loudly, I guess.
Go for it. I'll repeat it.
You had great success working with asset managers, Carlos. Any plans to work with actual enterprises and businesses who want to get onto blockchain?
So not just working with asset managers, but
Well-
corporations and enterprises that want to get out of blockchain.
So I don't know when you mean enterprises that want to get onto blockchain, what they want to do, but certainly we're not interested in blockchain for supply chain management or for things like that. We're a company that it's called Securitize because we securitize assets and put it on the blockchain and have licenses to work with securities on chain. And we want to focus on those use cases. We're not interested in doing something which is outside the scope of what our company has been created for.
Yeah, I was mentioning more corporate capital. So companies issue debt, corporate debt.
Debt.
Oh, well, so with tokenize equity and debt for companies, yeah, certainly. We did, the most successful tokenized equity product in the US so far, which was the Reggae Plus offering for Exodus Communications, which is a crypto wallet that they raised $75 million with a token that represents security. That is very interesting. TradeWeb, as I mentioned, is the largest fixed income trading platform, so they obviously have a massive book of business in terms of corporate bonds, et cetera. So yeah, definitely we're interested in that space as well.
We're going to take one or two more if we can do it. Anyone else got a question for Carlos?
I'm close to the mic here, Rob from Stellar. Do you see any angle where those assets could be traded on DeFi with some sort of KYC enforcement or integration with third-party platforms that might use you as the KYC enforcement layer?
I do, yeah. I think I have a good idea about how to do it. It's tricky. I think KYC is not the only problem. Like, there's a misperception in the crypto industry that if you KYC, then everything is fine. Security is unfortunately a lot more complex than that. So there's a lot of other things that you need to take into account, which are not purely just, whitelisting wallets. But I do think that, those technologies are very valuable, and there's mechanisms to make them to be able to be used within the context of, securities on chain. I'm pretty convinced, and hopefully we'll see some of that coming in the second half of the year.
I'll do one more. We got one more here. Saw first go up over here.
Carlos, I'm curious if you could comment on why BlackRock chose to do really basically an institutional, non-40 Act structure and build it. We'll hear from Franklin Templeton and Wisdom Tree today, who created a more retail product with the on-chain money fund and the digital trust. Was there an impediment, or did you think was the speed to market to go more of the institutional route?
So I can't speak on behalf of BlackRock. I work for Securitize. Why they chose to do that project or not is not something that I can address. So, but I guess different asset managers have different strategies. BlackRock chose an institutional product. It's qualified purchasers for crypto institutions. It's very crypto native, as opposed to some of those products that you mentioned that are not very crypto native because the token doesn't move or doesn't. You have to go through a specific app. It's not integrated with the rest of the ecosystem, et cetera. So I guess everybody has different strategies, and this is great because then it shows different use cases and different things that you can do with these products.
If one were to go ahead and actually leverage a 1940 Act structure, of course Securitize could support that, and would be no problem.
Yeah, so we are approved for doing 40 Act funds, close-end 40 Act funds. We are now about to get approved, hopefully soon, for open-ended 40 Act funds. We actually do have an interval fund, which is registered as a 40 Act, called ARCA, which was, I believe, the first one that was registered in the industry prior to the work of Wisdom Tree and Franklin Templeton, which is now, was where the transfer agent and the tokenization platform, they are listed in our broker-dealer. So we do both, and to be honest with you, we're a service provider, right? We're not an asset manager, so we don't tell the asset managers what they need to do. We obviously, have our opinion about these things, but it's ultimately their decision. So,
no asset is safe. Securitize is looking to tokenize it all. It looks like you guys are building a fantastic foundation for the industry to build on. I think everybody here is very thankful for your time here today. Carlos, it's always a pleasure to see you.
thanks, everybody. Thanks, Herwig.
Apologies for the fire.